pleased to be here today to talk about this because this is the result really of about 6 months of really hard grafting, working with Red Badger, my research team, exploring possibilities for bringing something distinctive to the marketplace around AI services and products, something that leveraged our long history. We've been building AI solutions for the last 15 years, went through a very long winter around the possibilities, and we built lots and lots and lots of products that didn't work, or at least didn't work as effectively as we'd hoped, largely somewhat due to our own actions, but also due to some of the capabilities of the technology itself. And suddenly we arrive in this kind of sweet spot where there's an opportunity to actually deploy these solutions in a meaningful way and to deliver on the high and lofty expectations that we've been setting for many years around the potential of AI to intervene. Through all of this, we've been really heavily involved in the debate and the discussion around ethics. I sit on a big variety of ethics panels and think tanks and cooperative organizations. Lately, it's mostly been happening for me in the World Economic Forum, where I'm a strategy officer, and I've been working across the fields of green innovation and emerging technologies, specifically around opportunities to apply artificial intelligence towards accelerating the pathway to energy transition and net zero. And in the midst of all that, we managed to pull together to get a partnership together with Red Badger around the concept of responsible AI. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning in my little 10-minute slot. So I took some notes last night, and I'm going to use them to guide my discussion so I can stay focused around the things that I wanted to try to share. So AI is often presented as kind of disembodied, objective, inevitable. And that hasn't been my experience of the technology. It's very material-based, it's very subjective, and it's very reflective of our ideologies within our society. And the presentation of AI is like an AI revolution coming at us or whatever, when my sense of it and experience of it is very much it's made like anything else. We make AI, and AI is made from ingredients in this world that combine together fundamentally people and natural resources to pull them together to develop these solutions. So conventional wisdom is kind of that we've been in the midst of this revolution, and that it's happening on a variety of fronts. Normally we think of it as compute, the biggest computer wins, data, models, machine learning. The kind of leaps that have been happening in all those technical fields are very well documented and discussed. But it's a kind of a sideshow for us in many ways, because this sort of set of capabilities doesn't really matter. We won't have any opportunity to harness the power of these technologies in a really meaningful way, other than possibly generating extortionate wealth for a very small group of individuals, unless we can align these technologies with human values. And this field we call alignment is kind of the most exciting territory to be operating in, and the one where we're really focused. And the concept of alignment is a kind of a by design system. So, tremendous urgency around it, because there's shrinking forecasts for the timelines that we've got in humanity to find alignment. And those concerned that we won't align and won't get it together quickly enough kind of take two paths. One is what I would call like the hit pause gang, and the other one is the innovation accelerator gang. And these are the two primary responses in the market around how to deal with the idea that if we aren't able to align AI with human values quite quickly and in a sustainable way, then there's catastrophic implications for our species. And the idea that, there's a way to systematically align these technologies with our values is a very nascent field. It's an area that requires tremendous amounts of experimentation. There are no truths or absolutes in this world. There's no way to take a bunch of ethics principles on a piece of paper and integrate and embed them into the technologies that we build easily. So you're probably more familiar with the hit pause narrative. The innovation accelerator narrative is one that's really come forward lately in response. I was just looking at the UK's most recent policy paper. So it calls for AI regulation in a pro-innovation approach. implementing a proportionate, future-proof, and pro-innovation framework for regulating AI. Now, innovation's in almost all of my many, many job titles, and the application of it in that way is a kind of cannibalizing of our terrain. It's an opportunity to sort of say, you know, the only way, we can't stand idly by and wait for the regulators to catch up, so we have to move forward with near reckless abandon to experiment with these technologies in order to learn enough to be able to regulate them. And I don't know if you saw the email exchanges around the submersible last week and the tragic death of the people in it, but you know, what leaked out there, Stockton Rush talking, our engineering a focused innovation approach, well, it just flies in the face of the submersible orthodoxy, the regulatory orthodoxy. But that right there is the very nature of innovation, right? The idea that somehow we have to let innovation free, that we're bounding it somehow by our efforts to try to regulate. And that, you know, in AI, for me, I can think of one really, really clear example, which is emotion tracking systems around that. So I've been working with those for many, many years. Many of those systems are patently ridiculous. Like, they're based upon 1970s social psychology that's been absolutely rubbished. You know, there's 6 facial expressions that embody all the emotions underneath it, and you have a matching algorithm that says that person's got a look of surprise, therefore they're feeling an emotion of surprise. That person's got a look of joy, therefore they're feeling emotions of happiness, and so on. Over the years, we managed to test this exhaustively, and there's no causal relationship and very limited correlative relationship between facial expressions and underlying emotions. And yet, AI systems have been generated and in a very unbridled fashion released. Right now in Hong Kong schools, these systems are running all the time to monitor students under the idea that many of these students may not be willing to express themselves, so the cameras can pick up that they're feeling fear or anxiety as they sit in their chair, and therefore there should be an intervention in their educational experience to try to complement that. So this kind of broad problematic space lies in the idea that, you know, the politics of classification or surface labels have entered into the world of AI in a very deep and meaningful way. So there's 2 genders you can choose from in this data set. There's 5 different racial categories. Everything has to be labeled. Everything has to be identified in a certain kind of a way in order for the system to be able to learn and train on the data. Through that process of classification, we embed a kind of politics of classification into the systems. That's what happens when you let relentless innovation outstrip our ability to understand and regulate the implications of classifying humanity in that way. So I'm going to just summarize with the approach that we're taking to responsible AI and what we mean by that. So for us, responsible AI solutions is to embed this in the design of the systems. We don't believe that you can sort of, it's not an exercise in semantics to just list a set of ethics or principles and then to make an effort to try to build systems that reflect those. It is in the design of the systems themselves and the way that they're developed. So we look at it, you know, responsible to the users. I can give you a couple of simple examples on that. We're building a very large system for the largest depository of scientific peer-reviewed papers in the world. We started out trying to do assisted reading on those systems so that when you reached a complex topic in neurobiology, you could highlight the text and it would translate it for you. The AI would translate it for you in a way that a person at your level of understanding could comprehend, and then you could move through a very complex and dense scientific paper and have a reasonable understanding at the end. And this translation exercise that the AI was doing all the way through was quite helpful, but we learned very quickly that we had a bigger responsibility than that. We needed the individuals who were reading that paper not just to translate the language on it, but to understand the nuance and the meaning. And what we did then was develop a system where you could actually interact with each individual paper. So each individual paper becomes an AI reflecting the content inside of that paper, the history of it, the bibliography and the sources, and you chat with the paper. And so as you chat with the paper, you ask the questions that you want to try to understand better about what the implications are of the science underpinning it. That's what we would think of as being responsible to the users, responsible to the business. I mean, there's never been a bigger need for prioritized backlogs. And for the process of prioritization, you need to prioritize and be able to assess AI use cases alongside each other and as an organization decide which way forward. And that prioritization exercise isn't just about the business value or the business case. The responsibility to the business is to de-risk it, to try to understand what the implications are more broadly for the workforce. Another area that we need to be responsible to. We're running lots and lots of training programs, onboarding, educational programs. They're very advanced. I just graduated 2 students this year. One's going to Shanghai, the other to San Francisco. They're both prompt engineers. Neither of them have any computing background or any sophisticated knowledge of AI coming into the course. 1 year later, $375,000 US in San Francisco, migrated as a family, you know, moving into a new world and a new opportunity off the back of it. These kinds of fields are emerging, but they require very practical, hands-on experiences to develop and train people. They don't require like large-scale knowledge transfer efforts. Responsible to the environment is a really big one for us. So green AI, you know, I mentioned that AI is made. There's a provenance to it. There's a history around where all this emerges from. There's also displacement costs. This, in my world, clean engineering, green engineering, this is my favorite part of the whole thing, right? Trying to develop these systems in a way that they are sustainable and clean engineered by design is a critical task. And then finally, governance. So legitimacy, legality, accountability. Building all of this into the systems in our way puts us in a position where we can score use cases according to these multiple vectors that go into building responsible AI systems. And in that way, we try to provide some kind of assurance that the systems we build are responsible, you know, responsible to the customers, responsible to the business, responsible to the environment, responsible to the workforce, responsible to the communities and the societies in which they're rolled out. And that is not a nuance in these systems. It's quite easy to just build things that are designed to optimize efficiencies and find new opportunities. Building this more complex way requires constant experimentation and learning. And that's the field that is very exciting for organizations, embarking upon journeys committed to building responsible AI solutions by design, not as an afterthought or not as some way of trying to bring together 2 seemingly paradoxical concepts into one, you know, sustainable and growth. That's the focus that we've got around our responsible AI solutions. We think it's a way forward for us to move with conviction and in confidence that we're making a meaningful contribution in the world, as well as supporting the organizations that we work with in prioritizing and thinking very carefully about how they move faster with less risk, not about moving slowly.